Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska and today we are talking about why your voice isn't improving. So you're probably on YouTube if you're watching my video because you're looking for a solution to a particular problem with your voice, whether you think you speak too fast or your voice is monotonous, you struggle to project, you speak too quietly, you speak too slow, you sound dull, boring, whatever, fill in the blank. But you're looking for a solution. And maybe you're in the mindset of, if I can just find the right video, the right tip, tool, technique, hack, then all my voice problems will be solved. Well, I'm here to tell you, as someone that's been studying the voice for more than 20 years, I've been singing myself since I can remember, and I work with thousands of clients around the world, that your voice, quote unquote, problems start from within, and then they are externalized. And here lies the problem, because most people are working on the symptom, but not the cause. And that's why they struggle. So you might find you have limited success or short-lived success. So many times clients will say to me, well, I can put these exercises and tools and techniques into practice at home, but as soon as I get into that meeting or into that presentation, or I try and have that conversation with my partner or my boss, or fill in the blank, my voice just seems to have a mind of its own and it seems to go backwards. So this is what I want to talk about today, because if you're just focused on the vocal exercises and that is what you're seeking, you are always going to be struggling. You are going to be hitting a plateau. You are going to potentially be taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you're going to feel like success is always somewhere in the distance. And actually what I'm going to talk about today, you can literally apply to any area of your life, whether it's health, weight loss, relationships, finances, career, anything. If you believe the problem is outside of you and you just need to find the right tip or tool, then you are always going to be limited, because you are the source of everything in your life and the world is just a mirror. And I know the ego doesn't like hearing that, because the ego likes to believe it's all outside of me. But there is good news in this, because if it's not outside of you, it means that you have the power to create the change. So when you shift within, when you take the action, you go to the gym, you do your voice exercises, you apply for those jobs, you go for that promotion, whatever it is, you're going to have far more success and it's going to last. It's not going to be this kind of temporary shifting carpet that you feel like you're living on. So before I get going, as I said, my name is Anuska. I'm an experienced voice coach, Jungian depth coach, using the profound work of Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung. And I'm also a performer, singer and singer-songwriter myself. So I put everything I teach into practice. And much of what I teach is what I have learnt through trial and error and through all of my own experiences in life with my own voice, and then couple that with all the training and the study and the research that I've done to really help you understand your voice and transform your voice at the deepest level. So if you're interested in something more transformative than just the surface voice exercises, which, let's face it, are 2 a penny out there, right now until tomorrow, the 30th of November, you can book a special Unlock Your Authentic Voice session with me. The details are below, but essentially it starts with a 90-minute masterclass voice session with me, and then we do a follow-up in January. So you get 2 hours of private coaching with me to really look at your voice from within. Like, what's actually really driving your voice? Why are you really struggling? Why have you been struggling with your voice for months or years? What's really going on? So if that is of interest, the link is below. You do need to book by tomorrow. And you also do need to take the first session in December, but you can actually schedule that first session below. Any questions, any problems, send me a message. Very happy to answer those. But as I said, you do need to book it tomorrow. It's a $497 investment, and it truly is an investment in you stepping into the fullness of your voice. So oftentimes when clients find me, they have been struggling with their voice for months and sometimes years. And they might have actually seen a speech therapist or a speech pathologist, and they've given them the all clear from the kind of physical perspective of the voice. And yet they're still struggling with their voice. So they might struggle to project, they might struggle to speak clearly, they might struggle to slow down or even speed up. Maybe there's a lack of expression or engagement when they speak. but in some way they feel their voice is hindering them and limiting them. And so I think often when they come to me initially, or maybe not, it depends how much research they've done on me, they think that I'm going to give them this magic pill of, here's the voice exercise that you've never had, and when you do this, your voice is magically going to improve. So first of all, I don't want to say that you don't need to do voice training. You absolutely do need to do voice training. Just like if you want to get healthier and fitter, you do actually need to exercise and work out, maybe go to the gym, maybe go for a run, whatever your form of exercise is. You still need to do that aspect of the work, but that is going to be 100% dictated by what's going on within. So your mind drives your voice, always. And this is where I think most voice coaching, public speaking coaching, communication coaching misses the mark, because we're really sold that here's the 5-step process and now your voice is going to work. That's only going to work if you are not in conflict with the thing that you say you want. So why might you be in conflict with what you say you want? Well, the first thing to really understand is your identity, the persona, the personality that you sort of live in, the way you see the world, is attached to your voice staying the same. This is really, really important. So the way you see yourself right now, all the stories you have around yourself, what's possible, this is who I am, this is not who I am, is attached to your voice staying the same. And so when we think about the attachment that we have this very strong attachment to our identity. So it could be, I'm just shy, I'm just an extrovert, I'm just an introvert, I'm just really sociable, I'm just not good at public speaking, I just find it very difficult to talk to people, or I find it really easy to talk to people, I'm just loud, I'm just quiet, I'm just reclusive, I just like being by myself, I just like being around people. Fill in the blank. Whatever you strongly identify with is actually what's really limiting your voice going to that next level. Because the identity that we have created is there to help us survive. So a lot of that identity is built in those first 7 years of our life, and it's really about keeping us safe and helping us to survive. So you might be heavily identified, let's say for the sake of argument, to being an introvert. And people say this all the time. I see it on LinkedIn, I see it on social media. I'm just an introvert and therefore I struggle with X, Y, Z. And you could also say I'm just an extrovert as well, but let's just use the example of an introvert. And actually, interestingly, these are Jungian terms, but they have been sort of butchered over the years to mean something quite different to, I think, what Jung intended them to mean. But anyway, let's use this in the terms that people sort of typically understand it to be. Introversion meaning I don't really enjoy social engagements. I don't like being around too many people. Maybe you feel you find it difficult to make conversation. You don't know what to say. Perhaps your voice is kind of pulled back, maybe a little bit quiet. Maybe you just find it hard to be more expressive and engaging. Now you can see then how that would have served you as a child, because these identities, these aspects of our personality absolutely 100% serve us as a child. So introversion would have served you, extroversion would have served you, depending on what side of the fence you perceive you're on. And obviously you can interchange this with whatever you heavily identify with. But you can see how that would have served you. So maybe it was safe for you to be quiet as a child. Perhaps you had a lot of emotional volatility in your home growing up. Maybe your dad was an alcoholic or your mum had mental health problems and you were just trying to keep the peace at home. And so you learn, if I'm just a good girl or a good boy and I'm just quiet and I just go up to my bedroom and I read my book and I don't make a fuss, then I can keep some level of peace in this home. But the problem with that is then you get into adulthood, you start wanting to advance in your career or build your business or find a relationship or whatever it is. And you're hitting up against this invisible wall because actually extroversion to you is emotionally unsafe. So being more expressive, being louder, being heard, sharing your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas, particularly if people might not agree with you, that is emotionally unsafe. And so a lot of people, when they heavily identify with, say, being an introvert, they really struggle with expression. They really struggle to project and to be more animated and engaging when they speak, because as a child, that was not safe. So you can fill in the blank. So think about whatever you strongly identify with as your personality. I can guarantee whatever is the opposite of that, whatever you strongly identify with, is actually what you say you want from your voice. So I've worked with many quote unquote introverts over the years, and pretty much all the time they come to me because they think they sound boring, dull, monotonous, dreary, and they really struggle to access more expression. But there's this internal conflict because extroversion is not safe. So we have to see that this personality, this identity that we've created isn't actually who we are. There may be some aspects of it that are our nature, but mostly, particularly when it's very limiting, this is a conditioned response to keep us safe. And so if you don't address this and you just try and do the exercises to sound more expressive, you can see how you're not going to allow that to happen. Because you take 2 steps forward and you think, okay, I can do this in the comfort and safety of my own home, but then I go outside and I'm in a meeting or a presentation or an interview, or I'm on a date, or I'm talking to a loved one, business partner, whoever, and suddenly it feels really, really uncomfortable, and you don't want to feel uncomfortable, so you run back to safety. So the voice just goes back to what it knows and what it's comfortable with. So lasting vocal transformation requires an identity shift. And this is the part that most people don't want to face. As I said, you can apply this to anything: money, career, relationships, love, health, weight, fill in the blank. It requires you to see yourself in a different light, from a new perspective, versus this limited way of seeing yourself. That is what is keeping your current vocal habits in place. So yes, you do have to do the voice exercises. Yes, you do have to practice and do all of that good stuff, but it's got to come from within. Otherwise, it's going to be short-lived, or you're going to have very limited success. I just want to share a quote from Carl Jung, because he talks very distinctly about these 2 phases of our life. And I think this is really helpful for people to understand, because we're not doing anything wrong by identifying with this personality or this identity or this persona, but it serves us to a point. So Jung's quote is this: "The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego, and the second half is going inward and letting go of it." So what does he mean by this? So the first half is really building this persona, this identity, which I've sort of spoken about already. And it helps us to establish ourselves in the world. It helps us to fit in to our social groups, to our family, at school, at work, in romantic relationships, fill in the blank. It helps us to kind of function in society. So yes, it absolutely has a role, and we need to develop this healthy ego, this healthy kind of identity. And I say healthy in terms of our survival. As I said, we learn how to survive. We are very, very clever beings, and we learn very quickly as children what is required to keep me safe and to help me survive. So this is all about survival. This is all about, how do I get my needs met? How do I get love? How do I get validated? How do I get that job? How do I earn more money? How do I get that relationship? How do I get my needs met externally? And there's nothing wrong with that, because as children, that's basically what we need to do to survive, because we can't take care of ourselves. And so it's all about safety, security, and survival. So that's the first stage of our life, and that could take us up to, say, early 30s, early to mid 30s, which is why most of my clients, I would say, are mid 30s and beyond, because in your mid 30s and beyond, or maybe your early 30s, it really depends on what kind of life experiences you've had, you start to wake up to things aren't working. You start to see the same patterns going round and round. You start to notice, I'm still struggling with this. I've been struggling with this since I was a child. You know, I still find it hard to project my voice. I still struggle to make conversation with people. I still struggle with public speaking. Fill in the blank. And you get to a point in your second half of life that you're like, okay, enough is enough. Now, for me, my parents died about 12 years ago, and that was my wake-up call. Because before then, I was very much 100% swimming in this survival ego identity of, this is who I need to be to feel safe in the world. But then when my parents died, my whole paradigm of life changed anyway, because the two people in the world that had kept me safe were now gone. And I had to find that safety from within, which brings me on to the second stage that Jung talks about. And this is individuation and integration. So this is the integration of these parts of ourselves that we split off. So using the introvert example, the persona is I'm an introvert, the shadow is I'm an extrovert. We have to integrate them. Otherwise, you are going to continue to struggle with whatever it is you're struggling with, and in this case, your voice. Because it doesn't mean you have to become an extrovert, but you've got to stop pushing it away. And there's aspects of extroversion that you need to integrate. Otherwise, you are never going to allow those extroverted qualities, quote unquote, like projecting and expression and really being heard and allowing your voice to express what you really feel out into the world. You will stay in that quote unquote introverted vocal space. So this second phase is really shifting us inwards, away from this outward striving and integrating these unconscious contents into our psyche. This is what allows ourselves to realize our true nature, our true self with a capital S, our authentic self, and in my case, the authentic voice. Because you can never access your authentic voice when you are pushing half of yourself away all the time. When you're making things wrong, when you are cut off from half of yourself, you can never access your authentic voice. Because the voice isn't black and white. We live in the grey most of the time. You don't necessarily just want to be loud or just want to be quiet. There's moments when you might want to be extrovert. There's moments when you might want to be introverted. And so from my perspective, those are just labels. They are not who you are. And so my work, even if someone really heavily identifies with I'm an extrovert, there's always aspects of introversion that need to be integrated, because otherwise you're going to be limited. And in the case of an extrovert, it might be that you really struggle to listen, that you struggle to engage in a more personable, vulnerable way, because you're just used to more broadcasting and talking at people. And I say this in the nicest possible way, but you're used to perhaps being the life and soul of the party and talking at people versus listening, taking a step back and sharing perhaps more one-on-one versus in a group, more vulnerable things about yourself. So neither is good nor bad, but when we make something bad, we give it a lot of energy, we push it away, and there is always gold in the shadow, and Jung called it the golden shadow. There is so much gold in our shadow despite the name, and so we want to integrate it. But the integration requires an identity shift. So coming back to what I said at the start, it's just remembering that the identity that you've created up until now isn't who you are if it's limiting you. If you are not achieving the things you want to achieve, if you're struggling to create change in your life, your identity is more about survival and security and safety. Developed as a child to keep you safe. It's done an amazing job because you're still here watching this video. So we're not making it wrong. We're not trying to push it away. But now, as Jung said, to go into this second stage in life, we have to start to individuate. We have to integrate. And it is very challenging. It is so much easier for me to give you a quick voice exercise and you go away and you practice it, bang, done. But it's not going to create the change. So if you're ready for something lasting, for something deeper, for something profound, I encourage you to book one of these special sessions, these 90-minute sessions, and then you get the extra bit next year as a kind of follow-up. Just to start to awaken you to what's really going on with your voice beyond the voice exercises. And yes, I can obviously help you with the technical aspects of your voice, but it starts from within. And this is where I think most people get stuck and why most people struggle to create lasting change with their voice. So if I can help you at all, please do get in contact. You can contact me through my website, anuska-taylor.com, leave a comment below, or book a session. I will put the link below this video, but make sure you book by tomorrow at the latest, and I will see you on next week's video.